Welcome back, everyone, to ProcureTech Wonder. I am Amanda Prochaska, your host for this video series. We're here to talk all about cool tech in procurement, and I am so excited today because we are featuring Focal Point, a procurement orchestration and performance management system that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. So I'm super excited to kick this off today, so let's get started. My guests today are Anders, the founder of and CEO of Focal Point. So welcome, Anders, and Zach, the SVP of Strategy and Operation for Focal Point. So I am so excited to welcome you both.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us on.
Welcome. Yes, absolutely. So the way that this is going to work, gentlemen, is we're going to go through a 15-minute rapid fire questions with Anders. So you have 15 minutes. If you go long, we're going to cut you off, and that's what we're going to get today. And then I'm going to hand it over to Zach. Zach, you're going to do a 15-minute demo. And at the end of the video, I'm going to do 3 things that I love about Focal Point and 3 things that I don't quite like yet about Focal Point. So let's go ahead and get started, if that's okay with you both.
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so let me kick it off to you, Anders. We're going to dive right in. I'm going to set my timer to make sure we stay on time. Okay. First, hopefully easy question for you, Anders. What does Focal Point do?
So Focal Point is what I will call a procurement orchestration tool, but also performance management tool, a resource balancing tool of procurement, and basically managing all the things that are moving in procurement today. When I started Focal Point, or before I started Focal Point, I spent 25 years in procurement, managed large and complex procurement organizations. And the challenge that I always had was no matter how much money I spent on procurement technology, my team and I did most of our work in Excel and email. And it was very challenging for us to figure out like who was working on what, which suppliers were engaged, who had the ball on specific projects. And when contracts landed on my desk for signature, very often it was the first time I saw it. So the idea of the origin story of it was to bring a solution to market that can put all procurement activities in one spot and track it holistically with multiple different views and layers. That's really what the vision of the solution when I started it.
I love that. And being an ex-procurement practitioner, I get it, right? And there's still so much going on in Excel today. So second question for you. Why is Focal Point better than your competition?
Well, I think there are still a lot of what I would call, single point solutions that does specific things today. And we either completely obliterate those solutions and basically say you don't need those anymore because we do that through workflow, to orchestration, but also the other solutions that you still need, like a P2P or a RFP solution, we integrate fully with them and just move work back and forth in and out and using those systems. And the other thing we do is we realize that the work of procurement is getting so complex lately. And the analogy that I sometimes use, when I started in procurement, it was all about saving money. Later on, we became liable for all of our suppliers' work and misdeeds. So then we had to save the company from bad actors. And now we also have to save the company from, we have to save the world, essentially, by having diversity and inclusion, ESG, anti-modern slavery, and all those things. And Focal Point facilitates those parts of the sourcing process or supplier management process along the way. So if you have an ESG or a diversity and inclusion goal at the top of the house, we can include that as part of your sourcing engagement, as part of your supply management engagement. So everything becomes on system and trackable. So you can set the goals at the top of the house and then execute the work using our workflow solution in a structured way. So that's what makes us different. Like, we do intake, that's fine. Intake to a purchase, that's awesome. But at the end of the day, like a lot of these intake things will end up being a procurement project, right? And you can do the intake, set it up in procurement. Then you can see who's available, who's got the skills and abilities to execute on it, give it to that person who then can execute that project from beginning to end within Focal Point. That includes all those things like diversity, savings, risk, what have you, right in one spot. And that's what differentiates us. We kind of look at it from a practitioner lens, and we know what practitioners have to deal with every day.
Okay, awesome. All right. Who's your target market? Who are you selling to day in and day out?
So it's been really interesting, right? We are a startup, let's be honest, we're 4 years old. And to our surprise and to our delight, most of our customers are enormous, complex companies. So we have 5 Fortune 500 companies in our portfolio, and they gravitate towards us because of the complexity and the full integration that we have with their downstream systems. So, for example, we contracted with a $65 billion insurance company, and they said we need an orchestration tool for our procurement process. And when we started, their Visio diagrams were about yay big, right? And once we got in there and started pulling the threads and saying, right, how are you doing supplier onboarding? How are you doing risk and compliance? How are you doing IT security? How are you making sure that IT has capacity? Like, these are their own rules, right? And all of a sudden you saw this Visio diagram get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you have multiple manual decision points. It's sort of saying, like, you select an artifact for the supplier, it comes back, someone looks at it, scores it, and then has 3 options they can pick from. And then that's another workflow. That's another place that goes. And all of a sudden, like, it becomes very, very complex. And I think that's where we really shine, where it's fully integrated with third-party solutions, third-party data. You can make conditional and contextual decision based on the data that comes back, and really, make the process online and visible while the stakeholders are being updated as and when things are changing. So that's why the big organizations are gravitating towards us. We also get quite a bit of business from mid-market. We just signed a very exciting customer in the advocacy space, a smaller customer, but we're very, very excited about solving complex problems and making stuff really sexy for procurement and procurement stakeholders.
Okay, awesome. I love that. And it's interesting because procurement is complex, like the amount of touch points that we have. And I think that's what you're really trying to solve for, is that black hole feeling that so many people get about procurement. Okay.
100%.
All right. How do you price Focal Point? You don't need to give a price today, obviously, but how do you go about pricing it? What does that look like?
So we basically charge a platform fee. So having been a CPO that manages a budget, I know that variable pricing is scary to most procurement organizations, as it was scary to myself. So we basically say, look, we want you to utilize our solution as much and to the best of your ability, so you get the most value out of it, right? We don't set artificial limits or arbitrary limits to sort of, you can only have 3 workflows or 10 users, whatever the case may be, right? For us, it's kind of like, here's your platform fee, we'll get you set up, we'll get you up and running, and then off you go, right? So if you want to deploy this in other solutions, for example, you can. We have one organization now that initially started using Focal Point to facilitate the intake and management of procurement processes, but quickly then pivoted into using it for facilities and real estate requests. And that's a separate workflow that goes into corporate real estate and saying, hey, I need this, that, and the other thing. And then they can track that work as well. And now they're sort of pulling on a string to maybe do it also in human resources, because it turns out that intake is a thing that's, not necessary across different platforms. So at the end of the day, right, what I like to say is, we will not come with our hand out if you find a great way of using our tool. And that's, that's contrarian to a lot of SaaS companies out there today.
Yeah, I would say so. It's like, I want to grow with you, but the pricing model will force you to kind of think inside the box versus outside the box.
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunate.
It's a bit like religion, right? Like when we implement Procure to Pay, for example, in my previous life, like I wanted everyone to have access to P2P. Everyone should be able to requisition, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes providers say, well, that's an extra user license. Well, does it really matter, right? Like let's just deploy the solution that's the best for the company and not think about these arbitrary numbers, right? Because if someone never logs into your platform, like what's the extra charge?
The point, right? Yep. Okay. Why should we be excited about where Focal Point's going? Can you share a little bit about the vision of where you're going next?
Sure. So what I think procurement is lacking across the board today is that procurement strategy layer. And what I mean by that is not just a sourcing strategy, but also how you manage things holistically. So the way I kind of look at procurement is as a CPO. So you set the strategy at the top of the house. Let's call that a category strategy. Let's be honest, right? And that category strategy needs to include criticality and risk. It needs to include the market analysis, but it also needs to include the goals at the top of the house. So what are your diversity goals? What are your ESG goals? What are your risk mitigation goals? Whatever else is going on in the organization. And that then needs to, that strategy needs to be holistically aside at the top of the house and then proliferate down into the individual categories. And those categories, strategies will be executed in one of three ways: through sourcing, through supplier management, or transaction processing. And those strategies should basically go down and influence everything that happens underneath. That is our vision, and that's what we're building to. So we already have customers who have signed up for our supplier management solution. And as we are building out these different, legs of the stool, so to speak, we're also building the top of the house. And that's where we're going. That's why people should be excited, because we look at procurement holistically, like chief procurement officers do. We are not a go in the front door and execute and get a purchase order. We do that, but it's not really our shtick.
Okay.
We kind of look at things holistically, as intake being a small part of it.
All right. Awesome. I love that. Tying in the strategy piece and having it kind of roll up and see how everything comes together. Okay. So we have about just over 5 minutes left. We have two more questions, just so you know. Can you share a brief success story about one of your clients and how they're using the system?
Right. So we were approached by a $13 billion pharma company who were going through a lot of clinical trials. Now, clinical trials are typically difficult things to do, and you have to outsource clinical trials to third parties. And as the FDA comes in and audits things, it's very important that you show how that process was done and how basically the decision points were made and who the subcontractor are and all that kind of good stuff, right? And the pharma company came to us and said, look, we're having a hell of a time putting a process in place that, number one, is holistically visible within the organization, but also can lock things down and make sure things are happening. So clearly they've had some challenges in the past, and they looked for a solution to build something that would be basically approved by the FDA, which is the highest standard for them. And basically we implemented Focal Point for them so that someone can request a clinical trial, and then we take them through the processes that are necessary depending on what type of drug it is, what phase of the trial it is, who the people are that are going to be tested on, all these kind of different factors. They fill out a bunch of questions up front, and then the path will be laid out for them. And they sort of say, you have to go here, here, and here, 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 and here. And then as stage gates and approvals are happening, everything is locked down and documented in perpetuity, making the audits relatively simple. You kind of just turn it over to the auditors and say, look, here's everything that's went on for this clinical trial. Off you go, right? So it kind of changes the dynamic quite a bit. They were hugely successful, and they're continuing to come back to us for more and expansions.
That's an amazing story, because people won't, I think the general consumer doesn't think of a clinical trial as being a part of a procurement process, but that is a fantastic example. Okay. You have 3 minutes and 30 seconds to answer this next question, just so you know. What is one of the most common either learnings or mistakes that you see leaders make when they are deploying a system like Focal Point?
Well, I think the biggest mistake people make is they think it's easy, and they think of it as a technology project. All of these projects are actually change management projects, because you're changing how people do their jobs and how the people do their work. And it's much less about the technology, about how you implement it, and also how you communicate with people. Like, this is the new way forward. It will get easier. And also, just communicate with folks and make sure that you think it's the right thing to do. The second thing is, I think people tend to overcorrect. So people want to go, like, if it's the wild, wild west and everything is managed in Excel spreadsheets, and all of a sudden they have a solution that can force people to do certain things, they want to go from the wild, wild west to communist China overnight. That's a big mistake, right?
Yes.
Basically, you have to sort of make the change happen gradually, and then sort of take it in bite-sized chunks. That way it becomes an easier experience for everybody involved. So, be mindful of making too many changes all at once, and, take people along the journey with you. So those are the things that I see, is people tend to get overzealous and really sort of think about how they can make people do work. And that's not necessarily the best way of looking at it.
I love that, Anders, and it's kind of a crawl, walk, run kind of an approach. Like, but there's value even in the crawl, right? That's where I think people need to be thinking about as they're going forward. And thanks for the shout out related to change management, because that's where
It was not a plug, but yeah, it's
my
definitely
heart
true.
is. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, you fantastic job. I'm going to stop the timer. You had a minute and 44 seconds left. So
Oh.
you knocked that one out of the park. We might need to change the time frames for some people just to see how
I could
quickly
talk
they can do
longer,
it. Oh, I know. All right. Well, I truly appreciate your time today, Anders, and what you're building at Focal Point. If you're liking this video, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any further episodes of ProcureTech Wonders. We are bringing this information to you in concise bites so that you can make decisions in this very complex world of ProcureTech. And hopefully these videos will help you do that. With that said, I think Zach is in the hot seat now.
All right, Zach.
Zach, yes. Thank you, Anders.
Thank you.
Zach, you are going to be leading our 15-minute long demo of Focal Point. So I am going to hand it over to you and set my timer, and then we'll be off.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. Let me get my screen shared here. That'll take me just one moment.
Okay.
And move you fine folks right off over there. All right. So we're getting started here. Appreciate everybody taking a little bit of time to watch us today. This is going to be a really, really brief demonstration of Focal Point. So I'm going to show you 2 or 3 things. Anders talked a little bit about like who we are, what we do. So I'm going to put a bit of a technology finer point on that, so you'll be able to see Focal Point in real life. Inside our solution today, you're going to see several things. Number one, you're going to see what we think is the sort of the tactical sweet things in the door. That's that requester front end, or as you may know that in the request intake space. Then we're going to switch over and we're going to see how we take that request from an idea or something that someone needs all the way through the end of a process using our orchestration and workflow layer. And so those 2 pieces combined together, that intake and that orchestration component, will comprise, I think, the majority of the demo today. But then I'm going to show you some things that are a little bit more strategic in our minds. Anders talked about how we differentiate in our view of the world as practitioners and technology consultants. And so you're going to see some things that you may not have seen in other solutions. We're going to see how we do opportunity pipeline management. That's a strategic layer on top of the project management. We may have a little bit of time to see a little bit about program management. And then I'm going to round it off talking a little bit about how we handle our reporting. So I'm going to direct your attention now to the screen, and I'm going to focus over here on another monitor as I run us through this demonstration for about the next 12 or 13 minutes. All right, so what you see here in front of you is our requester front end. What you may have noticed as you look at this, of course, is the menus are driven by the role and profile of that user within the organization. Left-hand side is going to be the navigation. That's going to stick with us throughout the entire demonstration. In the middle, I have a tile for request forms. We've got a couple of different ways that we deploy these. Number one is tiles for people. If you know what you want, just go grab and select it. That's what we're going to do. If you don't exactly know what you need, we've got a tuck away up here that's going to let you do searching. And that search is connected not just inside a Focal Point, but it's also connected to external systems so that we can guide you. If you need to go create a catalog purchase over in Oracle, or you need to drop into Coupa or anything like that, that search mechanism will connect you over there and give you the guidance that you need to get there. All right, so I'm going to grab this request form here. We're going to start ourselves a new purchase request. And I've got to condense this pretty good because we're doing a really short demonstration. We're going to get this guy in the front door. And so I'm going to use a category that I've used a good bit before. So I'm going to use marketing automation solution. So the idea here is that this requester front end is completely no code. These forms you build up, you see I've got 3 steps to go through. So Focal Point feeds this to you in bite-sized chunks. Every request type or form may look different for you and your company. Most of our clients have between 3 and 5. Some, as Anders talked about, one of these really large providers have as many as like 15 to 20 plus type of forms. And so that's when that search comes in really, really handy. So we have a lot of integrated data elements here. So we're able to, in very bite-sized chunks on the front end, present to the requester user data and information. So here you're seeing I'm interacting with an integrated from a third-party system, my category tree. This is marketing technology. What do you need? New agreement. So that can kick off a contracting process inside of Focal Point. I'm just going to run through a few of these questions here and fill these out. I'm going to hit the high points on this guy, okay? So bubbling up to you, preferred suppliers in the category. I have 3 in this category of marketing technology, Marcom Tech, Market Go Solutions and Infinity Marketing. I'm going to select this one. If you want to request a new supplier, we totally support that, but time's not going to permit me to show that off. All right, so if you need to have like a risk register and do inherent risking on your request, and you want that to bubble up onto the request object and have it visible in the orchestration workflow as you go through, we support that. And these are configurable, so your questions may vary, but the idea here is that you can wait and score these guys. And as you do that, the system's going to auto-calculate what that risk register should be for this engagement. And this is going to apply to, in this case, to this particular engagement. And we can apply that type of information to the supplier record, because right now we're talking about a request, right? We can take that and apply it over to the supplier record. We can also apply that over to the contract. It really just depends on the motions that you're going to go through in this orchestration flow that we're going to go through here in a couple minutes. So I've swept that in the door. That was a relatively simple and painless form. So what you get now as the requester, you see the pizza tracker at the bottom. Nothing's happening on this guy yet because it was just swept in the door. So whatever the motions that you're going to have to take this guy through, this pizza tracker will keep that requester user completely and totally informed of what's going on. These are the predicted milestone steps that this is going to have to go through. One nice thing that Focal Point does is we actually mask the complexity of all that underneath process from those requesters, and we give them a super quick, super clean pizza tracker so they can see where's my stuff at, when am I going to get my needs serviced. I'm going to bump back out to the dashboard. This guy pops in here. This is in the status of pending. Okay, so this got to be picked up. We have a full triage function, which time's not going to permit me to go through. I'm going to switch over to somebody who would be managing or servicing this transaction, and we're going to see our orchestration workflow, and I'm going to keep us right on time. Let me grab this, switch up my other monitor, my other browser window here, and here we go. All right, so here's what Focal Point does. Now, let me orient you to what you're looking at on the screen. When that request is swept in the door, it drops into the request menu. We're going to pop back to that in just a moment. But using an automation that we call routing rules, we take that request and we apply those rules to it based on the category, the division, department, however your business structure lays out, and then we process it and put it into an orchestration flow. So down below here, I want to direct your attention to the bottom of your screen. These are those milestones that I talked about that the requester user is going to be made aware of and kept cued in on as we go through. They don't need to see all the complex motions of the actual process workflow. If you want them to see it, we support that, but most people are like, yeah, just give me a pizza tracker and we'll go from here. So I want to direct your attention for just a moment to the bottom portion of my screen here. This is the heart and soul of what Anders was talking about, that operational orchestration flow layer. And you can see that it's, in this case, a very elaborate and complex flow, taking us from request in the door, we call from left to right, all the way to purchase requisition posted in your P2P system of your choice. I'm going to pop back over here. A couple of points I want to make on this. People ask me these questions all the time. Is how do you track SLAs? Absolutely, we do. So on each one of these activities, you can see planned and actual start and end dates. The planned come obviously from the workflow that was applied to it. The actuals, as people take this motion or this workflow through the motions, it applies the actual start and end dates on these activities. And then you can see by role, by region, by task ID type, whatever, where we have bottlenecks and where are we doing well. So this workflow here actually is real client example. So we support a lot of different type of activities here. You'll see if you work through this flow, you'll see tasks that have to be done. You'll see stuff with subtasks that have to be completed underneath. You'll see surveys. You'll see integrated steps out. So in this case here, we're actually doing the RFP inside of Coupa. So that's going to pop out to Coupa and then bring that back in. I don't, in these type of webinar scenarios, I don't ever demo external technologies since we're not under non-disclosure. So I'll just have to describe it here. Popping on over here, you can see surveys, all kinds of different things that we support. This is a 360-degree collaborative workflow where we've got different actors, whether that's the requester, the person who's responsible for servicing this in strategic sourcing, integrated to third-party systems, activities with the supplier. You can see all the stakeholders that are going to be required here are tagged and pulled by Focal Point into that request. The supplier's tagged on this request. We can pull down contracts and everything. So you've got a 360-degree view. We call this a project record because it's more than just a workflow to service a request, right? This is a full end-to-end solution that is enabling us to track and manage that process from left to right. All right. So I'm going to pop out a couple things here. you're kind of getting the greatest hits. All right, so we've seen the workflow. Let's do a quick recap. First, you saw a request come in the door. We didn't view the triage rules applying it to get us to this workflow here, but we've got that middle piece that automates that conversion between that request into this flow process. In this case, I'll just pop this guy back up. Since this is a flow that was already in process, you're able to see the request stages. So this is the pizza tracker view that the requester gets. Also, you receive notifications via your medium of choice, whether that's email, Slack, or Teams. You get notifications inside of Focal Point and in any one of those delivery vehicles as well. On the request object, and I'm going to point out a couple of things here. When you're servicing a request, you're doing your research, like the first activity in my flow is, hey, I need to research this request, see what's going on. Great. So Focal Point gives you super nice views like the category, 360-degree category view, integrated data. Anders talks about Focal Point. So we create a space to give you a focal point and see, all right, what's going on in this category at the point this request is being serviced. You got research tools here. And this view came right off this tag request that's right here on that workflow that was created. So let's see what we see on the supplier records. Inside of Focal Point, we pull in supplier records and then we enrich that with all kinds of additional data. 1 second to serve here. All kinds of additional data. And as we do that, you get views on your supplier records, contract records, that you can't really match anywhere else. So in this case, I've got a supplier record. These are linked over to external systems. I can see all kinds of data like how much spend do we have with the supplier, what active contracts do we have with the supplier, what are the active projects with that supplier. So you get 360-degree views, and all of this is supporting you in this orchestration flow that you're doing. And all I have to do to get there is click on this guy right here. Takes me right into that supplier record. Same thing for contracts. I think my time is going to fail me to be able to demonstrate anything on that. So let's talk a little bit about savings, and I'm going to switch over and move out of this really quickly. All right, so we have a very sophisticated savings tracker. I had already entered a savings on this particular project so that I had to, because I was having to demo this so quickly. So here on this process flow, we have a baseline of spend, projected spend, and the Focal Point automatically calculates the savings for you based on the savings types that you have here. And then you can also roll this out over a date period. So over what period of time are we taking those savings? In this case, it was a 12-month run rate, and it's showing us how much in percentage or by amount we're seeing those savings roll into our organization. So very robust savings tracker, and all of that is built right onto these process orchestration flows that are built into Focal Point. I'm going to quickly transition here as I do a quick time check. I've got about 3 minutes left, I think, here. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that we talked about requests, we talked about orchestration flow, but how do we give you tools to plan more strategically? So something that Focal Point does that's a bit unique to us in this orchestration space is giving you, instead of just being able to service things through requests, you can also, as a sourcing organization, strategically plan. And that's what this opportunity pipeline is all about. Every entry in this opportunity pipeline or funnel right here creates a bubble in the chart. You've got a Likert scale that tells you low to high on time and low to high level of effort. And based on that amount of savings that you expect, it determines the size of the bubble. This right here is a space for you to plan. So what you do is your folks enter these ideas. This is an idea funnel. Tag stakeholders, you collaborate on this guy. You've got comments so that you can collaborate and make notes to each other, do attachments. Like in this case, I got a business case. And when senior leadership, you sit down with folks and you look at like, what should we tackle in 2024? Here's a decision-making point that you can leverage to make those good decisions. Once you approve things, well, terrific. Then you can either create new projects or you can tag existing projects out of your project funnel into these. And so now you've got traceability from ideation all the way through operationalization inside of Focal Point. So we're about enabling you to plan strategically and not just react to request work that's coming in the door. Now, no solution would be complete without reporting. So I'm going to touch on that here for just a second. On the reporting, I got 2 dashboards I'm going to show you, and these may look a little bit different than things that you've seen in others. We have all kinds of native reporting on cycle times and SLAs and metrics and all that. But what we also do is, because we're folding in so much data inside of Focal Point, we enable you to do a lot of additional value-added reporting as well. So in addition to being able to report on projects and metrics and cycle time, you can fold all of that in and be able to do like spend analysis reporting here that's interactive. You can also, in this case, I pulled up a contract renewal dashboard. So show me all of the estimated and actual renewal benefits across the globe for all the contract renewals that we ran in the last 12 months rolling. How many of our renewals are on schedule? So I didn't mention this, not only do we handle requests and a lot of other activity types, you can model any activity type inside of Focal Point. And here's an example. One use case is contract renewals. It's a very common one. We integrate in contracts. We can create contracts inside of our system, track those renewals, and then manage those as a process. And then you've got all kinds of great dashboarding and reporting that you can do inside of our system, like you see here, or you can port that out to Tableau or Power BI or wherever you want it, so that you can create the views that you want. So that's a really, really brief demonstration of Focal Point. I'm going to back out here and go back out to my dashboard, and that's going to conclude my demonstration. I thank you so much for your time and attention.
Zach, well done, my friend. That was pretty impressive to get done. And according to my time, you still had about a minute left. So it was very well done. I do want to thank both of you for highlighting Focal Point for our watchers, subscribers on our channel for Wonder Services. So I do really appreciate the insights, Anders, that you've shared about where you started and how you differentiate yourselves. And then Zachary, I'm going to call you by your full, like, you're in trouble. Zach, it was great to see the system today too. So appreciate that. And with that said, please, if you like the video today, please like it again and subscribe. And for now, you're going to get 3 things that I like about Focal Point and 3 things that I don't quite yet like about Focal Point, but I know you guys are going to work on these things. So you can go ahead and drop off, and we will see you later.
Thanks
again.
again.
Thank you, man, for having us. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye. All right, everyone. So 3 things that I absolutely adore about Focal Point, and I was taking notes, so I'm going to grab them here really quickly. So the first thing that I love about Focal Point is their focus on performance management. There are several orchestration tools out there today, but Focal Point really was founded by procurement folks. Like, they know what it takes to run a procurement organization, and the performance management aspects of their solution are far well beyond anything else that I've seen in the marketplace. So they're really hitting it out of the park on that particular aspect. And you can see that their procurement expertise shines through. Hopefully you saw that on the demo today. Visibility is a huge thing with orchestration tools. I think the way that they've built the system, it allows you for so much more visibility as a procurement practitioner, and then also for your stakeholders to be able to manage your business day in and day out. So again, just the breadth of what they're building and the dashboards and everything just gives you a really great way to manage your procurement processes within your organizations. The last one, and I think this is kind of a double-edged sword for them, but they are highly customizable. So when they go into clients, they really listen to your needs and try to understand where you have these processes in your businesses, and then they will build to that. Where some of the other orchestration tools just have like out of the box processes that they have built, and they expect you to fit into those. So Anders and team, they take a very different approach to how they're working with their customers, and they're really keen on making sure that they're developing what you need for your organization within Focal Point. So kudos to them for that. Now, 3 things that I don't quite yet like about what they're doing. Now, this is just my wish list of what maybe they could be focusing on in the future. And the first one is, I think they would benefit from some sort of chat front end to make it really easy for users to interact with the system versus like the tile out kind of layout that we saw on the demo today. If there's a really easy chat functionality, then I think that would be just a better user experience overall. I'm sure this is something that they're probably already thinking about, but I would love to see it. The second one is, and you'll hear this a lot from me because I'm a big fan of this, is go to where the people are. So instead of having to go to Focal Point to start the process, or do something like that. It could be a chat solution, or it could be an integration to Teams or to Slack, or even into, I don't know, an email, if you can do a plug into your email. So as people are thinking about how to engage procurement and what they need from procurement, you're there already versus having to go into a platform. And then the last one that I think is going to be a huge benefit in the long term for Focal Point is some sort of AI feature and assist feature. So if someone's going in, even if it's a procurement professional or a stakeholder, and they're like, yeah, I kind of need this, but I let me put in some prompts and maybe AI can build that out further for me. Or maybe if, as a procurement professional, if I can use AI to say, okay, I want to rationalize these suppliers that I have now in the system. Can you help me create a plan around that or provide suggestions? So some sort of AI assist, I think, would really take Focal Point to the next level. So with that said, ProcureTech Wonders series is all about understanding what cool tech is out there in procurement. There are so many different options that you can select. And here at Wonder Services, we love to provide visibility and value to you so you can help make the right selection. So you will find a link below where you can contact us if you want to learn more about Focal Point. If you just need general assistance on helping you understand where to start with ProcureTech or your selection process, or if you just want to learn more about Wonder Services in general, please click on the link below and we are more than happy to help you. With that said, until next time, please subscribe so you don't miss it, but you'll be seeing us more and more highlighting these ProcureTech Wonders for you, and have a great day.